Today, we are going to delve into what is perhaps one of the most profound human projects imaginable, the transformation of the self. In this exploration, we'll chart this journey through the lenses of two traditions that might seem distant at first glance, Western esotericism and Islamic philosophy, only to uncover a surprisingly shared and quite beautiful architecture of consciousness.
So let's begin with a question that really sits at the very heart of our entire discussion. Are we born complete, a sort of finished product? Or, as these two ancient traditions would suggest, are we actually born as raw material, a potential, simply waiting to be realized? You know, every great construction project has to have a starting point. And for the construction of the self, that starting point is a state of unrealized potential. What's absolutely fascinating is how different philosophical systems, separated by culture and time, describe this initial human condition in remarkably similar ways.
So on one side, you have the Masonic concept of the profane world, a state of ignorance often symbolized by a rough, unworked stone. And then on the other side, you have Islamic philosophers like Al-Farabi offering a truly parallel idea, the potential intellect, or hayulani akal. Now, this term actually comes from the Greek hayal, meaning matter. It describes the intellect as this pure, unformed capacity for knowledge, just waiting to be shaped. You see? Both traditions are pointing to the very same truth. The self begins as an unrealized potential. And this brings us to what is arguably the most crucial first step. The entire journey of transformation, in both these traditions, begins with a moment of profound self-awareness. It's the recognition that one is, to use the Turkish term, hamade, raw material. Now, this isn't about admitting a flaw. It's about accepting potential. It's the deep understanding that you are not a finished statue, but rather a block of marble, ready and waiting to be shaped. Okay, so if the self is a spiritual temple that's waiting to be built, you're going to need the right tools, the right blueprints for the job. So let's now turn to three distinct, yet incredibly powerful paths that these traditions offer for the construction of a new consciousness.
These traditions don't just offer one path, but three distinct yet interwoven ways to illumination. First, we'll explore the path of ritual, a profound journey of symbolic death and rebirth. Then, we will walk the path of love, and we're talking about love not as a mere emotion, but as an ascent of perception. And finally, we will climb the path of the intellect, which is presented as a ladder of consciousness that reaches toward the divine.
The first path, which is absolutely central to esoteric traditions like Freemasonry, is that of initiation. And we should be clear, this is no mere ceremony. As the great historian of religion Mircea Eliade defined it, initiation is nothing less than a profound symbolic death. It's an intentional shattering of the old self, a conscious breaking away from the mundane world, in order to be reborn into a completely new state of awareness, a sacred time, purified and potent. Now, the second path is articulated so beautifully by the great Islamic philosopher Al-Ghazali. For him, love is not some passive emotion. It is an active form of knowledge, or marifat. It begins with a perception of what is beautiful, what gives pleasure, and then it ascends from the physical to the ethical, and ultimately to the love of the divine source of all beauty and all goodness. Love, in this sense, becomes a tool for reorienting the entire self toward a higher reality. And then we have the third path, which is the systematic ascent of the intellect, mapped out with incredible clarity by philosophers like Al-Farabi. Just look at this progression. It starts with hayolani akal, which we've already met, that raw potential intellect. Then, through reason and engaging with the world, this potential is actualized into mustafad akal, the acquired intellect. But that's not the end. The ultimate goal is to connect with the fa akal, the active intellect, which is understood as a universal, divine intelligence that acts as the source of all knowledge, illuminating the human mind much like the sun illuminates the earth.
So it's very important to grasp this next point. Whether you take the path of ritual, the path of love, or the path of intellect, the destination isn't just a new set of ideas in your head. The goal is a completely new state of being. The architecture isn't just meant to be observed, it's meant to be inhabited.
And here we arrive at a truly radical idea, one put forth by the Persian philosopher Mulla Sadra. He completely challenged the conventional notion of what it means to know something. For Sadra, true knowledge isn't a collection of facts you hold in your mind. It's not something you have, it is something you become. True knowledge is a modality of being. It literally transforms the very substance of your soul. And we can see this ultimate state described with different words, all pointing to the same peak experience. The intellectual path seeks ittisal, a conjunction with that divine active intellect. The path of love seeks marifatallah, which is a direct experiential knowledge of God. And the path of ritual initiation seeks the light, the experience of becoming a child of the light. In every single case, knowing and being have finally become one.
And this is where our central metaphor comes full circle so perfectly. The work has been done. The raw material, that rough stone of the profane self, has been hewn and shaped and polished. It is now a perfected, living stone, finding its proper and harmonious place in the construction of a universal spiritual temple.
But right here, just as we think the temple is complete, both traditions add a crucial and I think deeply humbling twist. The completion of the temple is not a final destination. It's not some kind of graduation day. No, instead it marks the beginning of a new, continuous, and dynamic way of existing.
This ongoing process is often called the Great Work, or in Turkish, tekemmül. Now, this term comes from the root for perfection or completion, but it actually implies a continuous process of maturation, not a static endpoint. The work is never truly finished. As the saying goes, the mason rehews his rough stone daily. Every single day as a new opportunity for refinement, simply because the potential for growth is infinite. And that leaves us with a final, and I think rather provocative thought. If the self is not some static object, but is in fact an ongoing project, well then every moment, every choice, and every single thought is an act of architecture. The work is always right here, at hand. So the only real question is, what stone will you shape today?